Hi, everyone. Welcome to the VIFF podcast. This is your chance to get the inside track from people behind the films you love and the films you're about to discover. This podcast was recorded on the unceded territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh First Nations during the 43rd edition of the Vancouver International Film Festival. My name is Casey Wei, and I'm the short form programmer, here today with director Faith Sparrow-Crawford. Faith's short film, Uncommon Ground, plays in Program 9 of the short forum on Saturday, October 5th at 9 p.m. and Sunday, October 6th at 1:15 p.m. at International Village. The film is set in the year 2171, where the protagonist Tawny and her aunt live in the Shadowlands. While on the journey to the capital to get medicine for her aunt, Tawny encounters a plane crash survivor and risks her own safety to treat him. Welcome, Faith. Stoked to have you on the show.
Thanks for having me.
But maybe we can start by getting to know you and your practice a little bit. How did you come to filmmaking?
Sure. First, I'll just, as is my protocol, introduce myself in my Hunkaminam language. So, Ichuail, Siam Nasiaya, Antha Faith, Talitsanat, Humathquiam, Aitunashqualawin Quitsi Quetznala. So, hi, my name is Faith Sparrow-Crawford. I'm from Musqueam, and I'm really happy to be here today.
Awesome.
The question was, how did I come to filmmaking?
Yes.
It was kind of the bug in my family. Making short films, being part of this film industry in Vancouver came naturally to me. Telling stories came naturally to me, coming from a long lineage of storytellers. Musqueam people have oral history, and story is how we capture our laws, our protocols, our teachings, and it was just part of who I am. And then my dad, actually, on my non-Musqueam side, he's in film. He's a stuntman. And so just watching him be on set my whole life, and he's also just very creative and actually a co-writer on this short and the stunt coordinator, among many things. He was a man of wearing many hats on set, but we've always collaborated together. Mm-hmm. So it was just in the family, and all of my brothers are actors. My brother's in this short film. Yeah. So it's in the family.
Awesome. And for this film, Uncommon Ground, I love kind of sci-fi films that kind of imagine where we're going if we're like to continue on our current path. And Uncommon Ground really fits within that genre, but it has so much of its own unique like story world, its own mythology. It's super dense. So I'm just so curious as to how you, as the writer and the director, how you came up with that story.
Yeah. I mean, it's actually Uncommon Ground, the short film, is part of a much larger story that my dad and I have been writing for a really long time. We've actually been writing a TV series based off of this story and Tawny, and there's more characters in that world, so that's why it definitely feels dense. But it's also rooted in Salish stories in this land, in this territory here, and thinking through how we move through space and time as people, and how we are also, constantly surrounded by our ancestors and the beings that were here a lot longer before us, that we might not be able to tangibly reach all the time, but that may be around us or have been here, and that these places hold those histories. So it's a pretty dense and big world, and I've always, when trying to explain the larger story to people, it's interesting to break it down into sci-fi, because that's how most people in a genre like come to it, is that it's this kind of science fiction, and that is definitely an element in the world of Uncommon Ground, but it's really based in our histories and stories and mythology, and so it's kind of a blend. Like you're right, it's got its own mythology, and that's based in who I am as a Musqueam person, as a Coast Salish person. But yeah, coming to write the story, it was kind of an amalgamation of characters that my dad and I had both built in different stories, in different pieces, actually. And then there was one day where we felt like there was this puzzle on a table, and we were both holding pieces. And then when we put them together, it all just fell into place. And that was the most magical part about writing Uncommon Ground and turning it into a short film, because we thought this could be a really good standalone story, but that it was kind of uncovering itself to us. Things would fall into place when we'd put things together. That was just so magical. and was unexpected. It truly felt like this story was already out there and we were just discovering it as we were writing it. So having it come from this much larger world of a scripted series, and then figuring out how we could tell it as a singular story and focusing on kind of the protagonist of Tawny just before the show starts. That's where we kind of created this story.
Interesting. Yeah, like there's so many points in the film. I love how in the film there's all these little hints to this like much bigger story world, but kind of as a viewer, we're given that agency to imagine it for ourselves.
Yeah.
I'm just super curious, like, how did you decide when to, I guess, kind of create those boundaries of like, okay, this stays in the film and this is better left for the imagination or for like the bigger project?
That was the biggest challenge for me, was turning it into a singular story, because it felt so large. And I got to the point where I was writing and I was like, does this even make sense anymore? When you have those moments when you're a creator and you're trying to not spoon feed, wanting people to come to their own conclusions about the story, wanting people to take away something that is personal to them and have their own imagination lend itself into the process, was really challenging. So deciding on Tawny as our protagonist, as she is in the show, was natural. And then deciding on this relationship between her and Jason, the survivor of this crash, I thought was poignant because they're connected kind of through time. They really highlight this notion of what is explorable in this world around us as just human beings, and what happens when we can imagine a reality outside of that and open these timelines between the two of them. And looking at their difference of how they meet each other, that they don't even know that they're from different times off the bat, and that they still connect to each other just as Indigenous people, that there's this kind of common thread that goes through Indigenous people. There's this common experience of things that we all can meet each other at and see in each other and feel seen by each other, even if we don't know each other. Right. So I really liked carrying that forward. And then carrying in this relationship between Tawny and her aunt. Any young Native woman will tell you that your relationship with your aunties is like one of the most special things. It's like having a second mother and a grandmother and a sister and a best friend kind of wrapped up all in one. So wanting to highlight that kind of relationship of these two women who are so heavily dependent on each other, that love each other so much and are just trying their best to carry on the weight of what their ancestors have passed on to them, despite all odds, despite living where they live and being outside of this kind of society, the capital, that they don't feel welcome in, that there's so much love there for each other and for the life that they've been given by their previous generations that have fought so hard for them to be there. I really love that relationship between the two of them and wanted to highlight that as well. Yeah,
like between Tawny and her aunt, it's like her aunt needs medicine and Tawny needs to go to the city or the capital to get it, but Tawny is also like really worried about just like the future for them in the Shadowlands, because she's like maybe they should just go live in the zones, and her aunt just adamantly refuses. And I love that kind of, I know that connection to home is very present in place in the film, where the Shadowlands, it is their home. It sounds kind of scary because it's called the Shadowlands. And through the Shadowlands, there's this voice that Tawny keeps hearing that goes like, I know you. And for Tawny, the experience is really scary. And she's like, what if I'm going crazy? But for me as a viewer, it didn't feel like as threatening as she was kind of experiencing it. Yeah, I'm curious about those decisions and like Tawny's experience of that.
Yeah. I mean, it's all kind of wrapped up also in the bigger show. So some of the answers that I give will be like part of this bigger world that I have created and been pondering for years in my head with my dad. And but Tawny is grappling with this notion of, am I am I losing my sanity? And she mentions that her mother went through similar afflictions, that she was feeling this fear and what it means to be living in the Shadowlands outside. The Shadowlands is kind of just this area off the grid, like outside of the cities, not governed by the municipalities. And so she's just been living with her aunt out there her whole life. And her aunt, holds this deeper history that she doesn't get to see, that she doesn't know. But Tawny is grappling with this notion of if she's losing her sanity. And it's terrifying for her because she's having these visions and these this audio presence that's in her that she can hear, but she realizes that nobody else can hear it. And there's a fear of letting her aunt see that too much. And I think for her, that begging almost to go into the zones is more her fearing what happens if she does lose her mind, what happens to her aunt, who she's the sole, she cares for her solely. And her aunt is just adamant about her own agency, about staying connected to their home, this place, and also is more adamant about the fact that what she's dealing with, she witnessed her sister go through, and she has more cultural context in realizing that it's not scientific. It's not, it's something bigger. It's cultural, and that there's things around us. She has this bigger understanding that there are things around us that we can't see. That doesn't make them any less real. And that's also something I really wanted to explore in this film, was what happens when culture presents itself in your face. What happens when there are things that you can't scientifically explain happening to you, that people who hold the keys of knowledge in our communities that have passed down this understanding of how to grapple with gifts, how to grapple with and live your life with these culturally significant abilities. And Tawny doesn't necessarily have that, but her aunt has memories of that, and she's trying to assert that to her, and saying that just because you don't have the language for it, just because you don't have the knowledge for it, doesn't mean it's any less real, and doesn't mean it's not within you. So wanting to explore this notion of what is real to us. This culture that I come from is so beautiful, and there's things that the English language doesn't have to explain, that could only be explained in Hunkaminam, that we don't have these notions in our in the Western world, but our culture holds the keys and the answers to it. So for Auntie Jade, it was really it's tied to this place. She's like, no, we have to be here.
Right. Yeah, I love how Tawny's character, you can tell how she's kind of trying to understand that, and she's also kind of burdened with this responsibility of just having to get certain things done, like when she's when she woke up from her dream and her aunt was like, it's okay, just rest, and she's like, I have to go get the firewood. She just has all these things she needs to do. And she's such an interesting character because in some ways she's very afraid and kind of just vulnerable, but in a lot of other ways, especially when she encounters Jason, who needs help, she's so resilient and strong and knows exactly what to do. And I really love that kind of that back and forth between somebody who we see kind of really, really kind of vulnerable, and then she's also very she shows her strength beyond her years kind of. And the sort of the time traveling part, I didn't understand. I didn't get that until we were just speaking about it. I'm like, oh wow, there's a time traveling element too. And that's really amazing, just because now I'm just thinking about her visions she has, which is, it's so apparent that there's these different movements through time. And at the end, I don't want to spoil the ending, but something unexpected, like a cliffhanger, happens with Jason, and I'm just like, wait, what? So all these things kind of really, these pieces are really clicking into place now.
I know, I'm struggling to know what answers to give in this moment where I'm like, people haven't seen it yet, and wanting them to see it and come to these conclusions on their own. But this voice that you're talking about that we're hearing is the voice of a mythical being a culturally significant being from my culture, that is named Silke in Hunkaminam, English way of pronouncing it just being Silke.
Okay.
A two-headed serpent who is really culturally significant for Musqueam people, but like many other beings from our culture, really powerful, and has this ability to transcend time and connect time in this world, in this show, in this short, having the ability to connect characters through time. And for Tawny, she has a much higher calling, and which is why he's kind of haunting her almost. It feels like a haunting to her, but for him, he's guiding her. And so it was a really interesting balance to strike where for her, it's terrifying. But I didn't want him to be terrifying. And I'm glad that came across. That he, he's just this powerful being that is to her a threatening presence, but is just there. So yeah, he connects those kind of realms, and it's one of those things where I'm like, some people will get that they're from different times, and some people won't get that they're from different times. Either way, is that real for her? Is what she's experiencing real? And that's the question for the short itself. Is really what happens when you're faced with this experience. Yeah. Do you take it for what it is? Do you learn lessons from it, or are you afraid and you run from it? And Tawny is kind of doing both.
Yeah. She's getting there.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I love how because the voice isn't scary per se, but it hasn't really revealed to her yet what it is. So I can totally understand where Tawny is. And I really kind of love that indeterminate space because she's still trying to figure it out. Trying to figure it out. How did you come up with the title, Uncommon Ground?
Well, I thought about the fact that all of these characters, these three characters in the short, are on this similar space in this physical place, but they're disconnected through time or through their mental where they're kind of approaching each other. They're all in this same space, but they're coming at it from different understandings or from different times. So it's like this common ground, but it's uncommon to them in a lot of ways, that they're all just trying to find their way through it. And for Tawny especially, just struggling with finding her footing, struggling to survive, keep her aunt there, figure out some sort of path forward for herself. So that's where the title kind of came from.
Yeah. I'm also curious because obviously you shot it on location somewhere.
Yes.
Like on location shoots, I'm always like, oh, like what happened? How was that process? Yeah. What was the shoot like for you?
It was intense. It was a really good, we did it in 3 days out in Surrey at Panther Paintball. They had a built set there, which was great. They were excellent to work with. But it was a busy shoot. I mean, it was like an 18-page script in 3 days. And we were shooting in late spring, kind of early summer. We weren't sure if it was going to rain. And then it was bright sunlight, which was challenging to deal with. But it was, it all worked out really well. The crew was all phenomenal. So supportive. Everybody kind of got on the same page and really understood that this story was different and wanting to make it the best that we could, and just felt like we had such a good spirit throughout it all. Everybody was like all hands on deck trying to make it all work. But it was a grind, that's for sure. Yeah, but so grateful to have had the team that I did. And this was my first time directing. So I walked into this being like, well, this is an ambitious shoot for my first time shooting something. But it all worked out, and just had such a great support system, and just also had so many family members on this set, which was so great. I had my dad there, and my brother's an actor, and my cousin Julemia plays Auntie Jade, and she's a phenomenal actress as well. And my youngest cousin, who is like my soul sister, I love her so much. She was camera trainee on this short, and just was surrounded by a ton of friends and family, which made it so supportive and brought some soul to being on set, which was great.
Yeah, I love that, the collaborative family project. Because my next question was, I'm like, I know it's not always easy to work with family because sometimes I work with family in projects, but yeah, so but it was a positive experience. No,
Yeah.
no, like I don't know, just like family fights throughout
Yeah.
the 3 days.
No,
Nothing
we
blew
were
up.
really, really good. I was, I'm very close with my family. The Sparrow family is huge in Musqueam. There's like starting with my grandmother and grandfather all the way down now to like the great grandchildren. I think there's like 75 of us.
Wow.
And we all grew up on the Musqueam Reserve. So there's tons of us around. We just get used to being around each other all the time. And I don't want to be in a world where I can't work with my brothers and my younger cousin. I love to work with them so much, and they understand me. It honestly made it a lot easier in a lot of ways because they know how I work, how my brain's working, and so it was easy to do. And my brother's an actor, and I don't know, helped him tape I don't know how many auditions. So I feel like I'd already been his director a few times before this, and we worked together really well.
And this is Jason in the film.
Yeah. And now I'm such close friends with Lena Robinson, who plays Tawny. She's basically a sparrow at this point and has worked with has just become such a big part of our family. Working in Indigenous communities, it feels like working with family all the time. Yeah. And I mean, it can present its own challenges, but it's the best way to work for me.
Yeah. I guess another question I had was about, I don't know, just like the editing process. I guess, do you edit the film too? Like, or is it like with a team of people?
I so wish I had that capability, but I don't yet. I would love to learn. No, I had a great editor, Kevin Ang, come on as part of the team. He's really close friends with our two producers and understood the film really well. So it was just me and him kind of side by side, working together. He had his great viewpoint into it, and it was always really it's really helpful to. He had never seen the script before we were shooting, and obviously he got familiar with it as we were trying to move through it. But having outside perspectives of people who aren't like buried in this story, especially the story of the television show, which some of my producers, my dad, my brothers, they all are, they know the whole story. So having somebody who was fresh eyes come in and have his mark on it was really helpful in trying to find out what was too abstract so that it wouldn't give people a kind of way to make their own decisions, but also not so prescriptive, so that you didn't give them that agency to find their own story in this. So yeah, I wish one day I hope to learn to edit.
I mean, you were there. You were right there with them. No, that's what, like, for me, like, what made the film so successful was, like, there was, like, all this backstory that I could sort of, like, kind of glean at, but then the film was very, like, focused on just what was happening to these three characters. But I'm like, oh, there's all this, like, stuff about, like, a resistance and, like, the serpent creature. It was so beautiful. And but I had no idea what it was.
Yeah.
Just these like scenes, that the visions she was having, totally just brought this like, this extra element that didn't really need an explanation. We can all kind of like imagine like, oh, these are visions. They're like important in a way that we don't need to fully understand. But we do have this like kind of like, just, I don't know, like intuitive understanding of what's going on. Like it's related to her like history, her ancestors, this place that her aunt is very much very just like attached to. And yeah, there's just like a lot going on, but in this way that's like super contained, and just like in 20 minutes it's kind of like this is the film, but then there's this whole world beyond it. So I'm very, very curious and excited to like know more about like I guess like the second, third, fourth part of like Uncommon Ground.
Yeah, I'd love to keep building the story. It is the most interesting way. I guess I can't separate myself and how I tell stories from being Musqueam and how we tell stories. If I think about all of the lessons that I've learned from a cultural context, there's so much open in story. You learn lessons through these stories, but there are so many lessons that you can learn beyond that as you grow and think about that story more. And I think that's something that innately I did with Uncommon Ground was, knowing that there are explanations behind so many things to the film that we don't have the time to address here, that I'll let the audience lead itself to those answers. And I think that's something that happens so often in Salish stories and Salish lessons that you learn, is that there's layers to it, and you find the answer as it comes to you, as you reflect, as you experience things.
Right.
They come to you. I mean, I recently had an experience where I learned like a tough lesson in my community, and my aunt said to me, you might not know the answer as to why you learned this lesson now. You might know a piece of it, and then as you continue in your life and you reflect back on it, there's a new lens on that, and you'll find a new answer. And that's something that I really like about short films, that you can do with that. There's so many questions that you can answer or that you can ask, and that the audience will figure out in time how to answer if they watch it more, if they just think about it more, if that they can take a new lens to it, watch it with fresh eyes again, and find a different answer themselves, depending on where you are in your life when you watch that piece. I really like that about short films, is that you don't get a lot of time to lead an audience where you want them to go. You kind of just have to trust that they'll find their way to it.
Yeah, it's a very underrated art form, the short film.
Yes. Yeah, I think so. It's beautiful. You can tell such a poignant story in
such
just
short time.
a few moments, and it can really impact somebody.
Yeah.
And I think that's pretty reflective. I mean, the way I come at filmmaking and short filmmaking is just trying to give enough context so that people can make their own decisions.
Nice. Cool. Well, we also have this popcorn bucket here of fortune.
Cool.
That, and I think there's some, unknown to me, just some questions that maybe fate can decide which you can answer next.
Sure. I'm probably closer to this than you are. Oops. Let's see what's in here. Oh, there's lots. Oh, long. What's a film you're embarrassed to admit you haven't seen? Oh my God, there are so many that I'll be with friends who are like such cinephiles and are just talking about it, and I'm like, I haven't seen that. I'm like somebody who so my cousin Scarlett and I, the one that was a camera trainee, she's like the other half of my brain, and she's way cooler than I'll ever be, and just is also sort of one of those people. But she and I have a formula figured out, and we make ourselves laugh so hard because we'll sit down, we'll have movie nights all the time, and the two of us will pick two movies, one that's like a film that we are going to enrich our brains and watch and love, and it's beautiful, and the next is like a movie, like we're gonna cleanse our palate and watch like School of Rock. Nice. And it's the best.
That's the movie that comes to mind.
But she's always the one being like, you haven't seen this yet? Like, you haven't seen this yet? One of the ones is The Birds. I think that's one of those ones that everybody's like, you have to watch it. And I know it's on my list. I just never get to it. So there are many. I'm one of those people that has a list that is ever growing of films, all of them classics, that I'm like, I need to sit down and watch this.
Yeah, you'll never get to the bottom of that list. Yeah.
No, they
like
just
a lifelong endeavor.
Keep growing. Keep growing.
Yeah, I love that. Being either the person who hasn't seen the film or being, person to like introduce that film to a friend, and just being there, like on either end of that relationship, to be like the one giving the expressions for the first time, or the one just being like, oh, I can't believe like they're gonna see the scene coming up next. It's just such a fun thing to do. It's like such a fun treat. Yeah.
Watching people watch movies that you love, the best.
Yeah,
that's the best feeling. I'm like, do you like it? Yeah, I'm just they almost hate to watch it with me.
The answer is no.
Yeah, but I'm like, well, then you're wrong.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
No, I people when they watch movies with me, and I like overhype them sometimes. I'm just like I'm watching them watch the movie more than anything.
Yeah, let's do another one. Why
sure.
not?
Okay, another. Oh,
fortune cookie question.
What's the funniest film scene that always makes you laugh, no matter how many times you see it? I quote so many movies all the time with my family, and they just become part of now, like our repertoire of things that we say to each other. But there's one funny moment that me and my dad, we watched Jojo Rabbit together. I don't know how many times, so many. But there's that one scene where Jojo says to his friend that he has a girlfriend now. And the young boy goes, "Oh, good for you, Jojo, a girlfriend." And that line just it just struck a chord with me and my dad, to the point where my dad made the ringtone on his phone when I call him that young boy, saying, "Good for you, Jojo, a girlfriend." And it's like, when I call him, that's all he gets. And sometimes he's at work and he's like, "Oh God, oh God." So that's one of them. Jojo Rabbit's one of my favorite movies for sure.
This is like, I'm like embarrassed now. I'm like, is that a new film?
It's Taika Waititi's film. When did it come out? A few years ago now. But yeah, it was such great humor.
I have to put that on my list.
Oh yeah, you do. Taika's incredible and has such a good. I don't know. He writes in a way where you're like experiencing the movie, because the protagonist is a young boy. And when you're a kid, you just like, there's something like so fantastical about the world, but you just take it at face value. That's just like how you see the world. So when you're watching the film, I feel like I'm watching it through a child's eyes, but you just take it that way, and things are funnier for that reason. And he's just got such a great way of writing. So he directed that and also acted in it. But the young boy, the delivery of some of those lines just completely sent me. It became, the second I saw it, I was like, oh, this is on my top list now for sure. Whenever I list my favorite movies, it's up there for me.
Sweet. Yeah. That's something I think I definitely try to bring, that kind of energy, the kind of like the kids kind of openness to like wonder and amazement or something. Like I'm like, I hope I always have that, even when I'm like 90 or something, to be amazed by the world. Yeah. In these little ways.
It's so great. He does that really well. He did that really well in Boy as well, both of which are young boy protagonists, and just the humor when you watch something and you watch a kid do something stupid and you're like, that is so funny. But the kid doesn't think it's funny. They're just taking it at face value, and it makes it hilarious.
Nice. Well, maybe we can end off with something I'm always curious about with my guests. What are you working on now?
I am wanting to create another short film that is also in a Salish context, and it's kind of a family dramedy. In my culture, when somebody passes away, you have 4 days to put them to rest, so bury them. So the whole family will gather, the whole family and extended community will gather in the house of somebody, of the late loved one. And it is the most interesting 4 days that you can imagine, because it's like heightened emotions. People are grieving, but there's also so much laughter and sharing of food. And in one moment, you can be having this huge fight between siblings, and then the next moment, they're laughing so hard that they're crying. And so I want to tell a story about those 4 days in a family home, about a family trying to just move through grief while also finding their new footing after the loss of their matriarch. So that's it's based on experience that my cousin Scarlett and I had when our grandmother passed away, and we thought it would be such an interesting short story to tell. So hopefully,
cool,
one day
next year.
Yes, hopefully.
I'm so glad you said that you're working on a short film, because obviously, like, love the short film, but I know a lot of people who are making short films are also kind of working on their feature too. And I know you're working on the series, but it's cool that you're also kind of working on another short, because it's, like you said, it's a very special art form.
It is. Yeah. I love short films and what impact they can have in such a succinct amount of time. Thank you. Yeah, thank you for giving me the space to come on here. It's really remarkable for me as a Musqueam person to be able to share this short that is so inspired by the people I grew up with. I was surrounded by the people that molded me into who I am, my community that I love so much. To be able to share this story in my territory and provide a bit of Salish context here in the short forum is really appreciated. So my hands are up to you all for making space for me and inviting me to be here. I'm really honored.
You've been listening to the VIFF podcast. Thanks to our community broadcast partner, TELUS Story Hive, for their support. If you've enjoyed the show, please rate and review the podcast and hit subscribe for more conversations like this one. Visit VIFF.org to learn more about the Vancouver International Film Festival and to see what's on at the VIFF Center year-round.